All right, welcome back, everyone. This is the Rooted Podcast. My name is Michael, and this is my beautiful, happy, lovely, loving wife,
Alison.
And today we got a pretty good podcast planned for them, don't we?
We do. We're going to talk about our dream dog. We're going to talk about our selection process. We're going to talk about some puppy raising, and then at the end we have a little bit of a Q&A that we have added in from some of the questions that we've been receiving.
Awesome. So one of the things that we discussed when we're kind of conceptualizing this podcast is that we wanted to be able to provide a platform that is going to be informative, entertaining, but also the main goal is to provide value.
For
right?
sure.
So one of those things when we were talking about topics to come up with, we came up with this kind of like, hey, if you could design a dog, if you could actually say, hey, I want to sprinkle in this and take that out, what would that dog look like? And I thought that was like a pretty cool thing to discuss. I think it was your idea that you came up with that, didn't you?
No.
Who came up with that?
You.
Are you serious?
Yeah, you run the show.
Cheese! I don't know if you guys can sense the passive aggressiveness, but...
I don't think it was passive. I think it was aggressive.
Oh, it's just aggressive?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that product placement for Red Bull?
Don't show the branding.
No.
Yeah, come on, man.
No.
So Allie came up with this idea of designing our dream dog. So we figured that would be pretty fun to do, right?
Well, yeah, because we have two, I don't say very different opinions on dream dogs, but we definitely like two different types of dogs for our own personal dog. Yeah, so I think that's kind of why we decided to go about this. I thought it would be kind of a cool conversation. And then we also are in the process right now raising a litter. So it's getting us kind of in that mindset of selecting dogs from the litter that are going to be in our program, raise them up to sell to police or military, or even keep some for our breeding prospects. So it's where our brain's kind of like in that zone right now.
Yeah, for sure. So Allie, if you could design your dream dog, what would that look like?
Well, I do like an intense dog, which kind of sounds crazy because my next point is I don't per se love the twitchy aspect. And I feel like sometimes when you talk about dogs that are twitchy, intense kind of goes hand in hand with that. But I like more or less like that serious, intense drive. I like dogs that are very clear. I definitely, for my own personal dog, I enjoy the engagement aspect. I find when you have engagement, especially with your personal dog, training doesn't ever seem to be a struggle because even in failure, they're still looking for what's next. Okay, what should I do instead? Because the desire to engage with you, to please, is much higher versus a dog that is very independent, is completely okay with you never coming around. And then you kind of have to always play this balance of less is more. So for a dog that like really offers a natural amount of engagement for your own personal dog, you don't really have to like, well, I can't train more than 5 minutes and then put you up for, 3 hours, 4 hours, and then try to get some more engagement out of you. I definitely like dogs that hunt. I think, a dog that has the ability to use their nose and use it really well and very like fast paced where you kind of even pick up like the pattern that they're on but you can still tell it's methodical. I like talking about like physical aspects is like I love a really large Mal. Like I prefer larger Mals. I don't know if it's
so the breed is a Mal.
Oh yeah, like I would like.
I think we designing just so that as you're talking, I'm kind of picturing what you're designing. Are we designing the dream dog for us personally, or is it the dream dog that we would like to place as a dual purpose prospect?
Well, to be honest with you, and maybe I'm wrong, I think both of our dream dogs could do that work. Because even in I per se, I want a dog that will bite for real. I want a dog that will hunt for real. I want a dog that has the ability of tracking, like, because that's something I enjoy doing.
No, I get that, but the reason I was asking is because I think for me, there would be some subtle differences.
Yeah, well, for me, I personally don't have them too much because I don't foresee, I mean, who knows what the future has in store, but I don't foresee myself entering a trial field. So I kind of rather have a dog that is more action-packed, but I know I would never get the action. I mean, maybe, who knows? Someone might break in one day and
You might get angry enough at me.
You never know. Yeah, like I'm not. I want a high drive. I just don't want the twitchiness, and I do like a dog that eventually, and I'm talking like 5, maybe 6 years old, that will settle, like actually settle. Like Ruby and I struggle a lot with that because she's constantly high strung. But Harriet, her mother, on the other hand, she can chill quite easily.
That's what I was saying. Like, if it's for me, if I'm selecting a dog that I just want to keep as my personal dog, and kind of just have in the house and have as, like, I would select a different dog than I would, like, that dream dog would be different than the dream dog that I would want for dual purpose.
So then, but if I just want a dog to chill in the house, then I just obviously have like a Pineapple who's like a golden retriever. Like but if I have like my.
That's not what I'm saying. Like because if we're talking about like this fictitious world where we're designing the perfect dog for what is important? Like, is it perfect dog for you and your personal life? Well,
you asked the question.
Or perfect dog for. To go to a police.
But I think my 2 dogs, absolutely, if the training were different, I think my 2 dogs, that, especially my mouse, I should say, could have performed well in a police department. So I can't, and I think Dakota, rest in peace, she had the ability to chill in the house when she was about 5 years old, but she also had the capability of passing testing, in my belief, and becoming a police dog as well. Like, they all had, like, if I think of what testing looks like as a police dog, and then what like the certification process looks like, those dogs that I pick as my perfect dog meet those standards, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I don't have a differentiate in the 2, like my pet dog per se, or if I was this would never happen because they would never allow me to be a police officer or any military, but
the standards. Never mind. Yeah.
Michael?
You can accomplish it, I'm saying.
I don't think I could. I think it'd be too much of a loose cannon. Yeah, like that is my dream dog. I think like has all the capabilities of doing that type of work, and then I just hopefully myself can fit the genetic fulfillment by through training and situational type work.
I'm gonna design my dream dog, not for me. I'm gonna design my dream dog for like my dream dog to raise and place as a dual purpose dog.
Because yours is separate.
Yeah, I'll give the distinctions as I'm kind of designing it.
Okay.
For me, like the most fun dogs that I enjoy training just want to continuously do stuff, right? Like they're the twitchy dogs that you don't really like. But like I want a dog that's very, I don't mind the leakiness. So when a dog is excited about an activity, it would be a Mal or a Dutch for me. But when they're excited about an activity, they may start vocalizing a bit. These are the type of dogs that it's very hard to teach them, or not very hard, but it can be difficult for them to learn to be more stable in a behavior.
Yes.
Like in a target behavior. Those type of dogs that'll just be like, you put them in a down and they're shaking while they're in the down because they're waiting for the next thing to do. I really, really enjoy teaching those types of dogs because I think with those types of dogs, generally, of course, we're making generalizations because I'm designing this dog in my petri dish.
Okay.
That also coincides with a dog that is very easy to build engagement with. They want things. They have a high desire to have what you have. to have the food that you have in your hand, to have the toy that you have for them, to do stuff with you. So engagement comes pretty natural or pretty easy to this type of dog that I'm designing. But what also comes with that type of dog is the independence that is required to do patrol work, to go run into this 40,000 square foot warehouse and search it independently. With those kind of twitchy dogs, they're very, I call them, they're like, I don't really know how to describe them. Like they're like just
crackheads.
Kind of like methed out dogs.
Yeah.
But not without clarity. Like I want that type of twitchiness with clarity because it would also coincide with I would want this dog to be very biddable and to be. There are like some dogs that like learn things very fast and very easy. There's a gentleman, I'm not sure if you know him or any of our listeners will know him. There's a gentleman named Armin Winkler.
Michael.
And he has a quote that I actually really like. And the quote is, sometimes the dogs are so good. I'm paraphrasing, so Armin, don't get mad at me. But sometimes the dogs are so good that they figure out what we want despite our training.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that quote is good. And I would want a dog that is like that because I want them to also be forgiving when I'm trying new things or trying to do things maybe in a different way than that dog has seen, for it not to be the end of the world for that dog.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to experiment and the dog not take things super personal. The dog be fair, but be a very strong dog. And when I was saying I would differentiate between the dog that I want to keep versus the dog that's going to go out and be a patrol dog, is that I would, for the dog that I would want to keep, I would also want an off switch. Like I would not want them to be like that.
Diva doesn't have an off switch.
24/7. Harriet has an off switch for sure. But I would not want them to be like that 24/7, right? Like I would want, but for a patrol dog that is like, hey, you got work, and work is, I don't really mind that for them to do. But if I'm gonna, like, I want you to be able to lay down by my kids and hang out. But I also want, when it's go time, it's like, I'm here. I want overall intensity. So intensity, no matter what we're doing. I want, when the dog is doing bite work, for that level of intensity to be the exact same level of intensity when we're just doing obedience, or when we're doing detection or hunting. I want the intensity to be the same across the board. The other thing that I would look for in the dog is in this dog that I'm designing, is the ease of transition between skill sets or disciplines. So like from...
Sorry to cut you off, can I clarify? We're talking about now your personal.
Yeah, both.
Okay.
This is both of them.
Okay, this is both of them.
The ease of transition between, okay, we're doing detection, and now we're doing some apprehension bite stuff, and now we're doing detection again, all kind of within the same session, and the dog not having difficulty with that clarity of task. I think for sure a lot of that relates to training, but there's a huge genetic component to that. So
yeah.
I would season my dog with
That's a lot of clarity, for sure.
I would season my dog with a lot of that in their genetics as I was making them in my
in your petri dish.
Yeah. I think that kind of touches on everything, and then just the obvious, the in bite work, the type of biting style that I like is intentions, and the dog to obviously have a full grip, to be countering in while they're biting, not chewy and all over the place, and shallow grips. I'm trying to think of anything else if I was designing a dog. Oh, environmental strength, for sure.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, that kind of comes like along with it. Like if you have to have a dog that's like clarity and is able to do transitions and is able to, bite really well, and all those things, kind of like the dog wouldn't have all that if it didn't have some good environmental.
Yeah, it could, but if we're designing them, might as well sprinkle in perfect environmentals. And when I say environmental stuff, which is hard, right? When you're dealing with a very twitchy, like fast-paced dog, sometimes that twitchiness can hide environmental insecurities because they're kind of always, quote unquote, in this high state of arousal. So I want to make sure that it isn't just the high state of arousal that dog is always in that is making them look environmentally solid.
Yeah.
I want them to actually not in this state,
Yeah.
be bomb-proof with
Well,
everything.
so if I can lead into like my next thought that you were just like kind of like brought me there, is you kind of made me think about our last 2 litters, okay? So our last litter was more on the twitchier end and like the, I guess more on the spectrum if we can kind of differentiate between the type of dogs I like and the type of dogs you like. The last litter was more on the end of the dogs that you like. It was off of your dog Diva, blah, blah, blah. Like they had like more of a twitchier mentality. Their drive is a little bit different. But I'm not saying like to the T of your perfect dog. So just hear me out on this question, okay? And then the litter before that was more of even keel as far as like intensity in many ways, but also at the same time turned on really nicely, but also would go down to a like kind of a flatter state of mind when not doing something. And it made me think of when you're talking about environmentals and the 2 different ones that I remember specifically raising both of them at that age where we're really pushing environmentals, and having to instruct the trainers a lot where it's like, hey, these dogs are already in such a high state of arousal that there's a possibility that they're not taking in the environment when they're out because of where their brain is at and they're like going around looking and then something could happen and it's like, whoa, what was that? I didn't even see that coming. Versus the litter before that where they were so observant and kind of turning them up a little bit more in the environments was something that was almost necessary because they would hyper focus. Like to get, I'm just gonna think of like, one of the dogs from the first litter, I'm referring to the more twitchier one, to get them even to focus on one particular thing, to even get them kind of like nervous of it, was almost hard because it was like gone in a flash. But if I think of the litter before that, they would walk in and it would be like, I see the colors, I see the wall, and it was like so more observant. So it's like trying to find that balance and also approaching the environment training very differently.
But if we're talking about designing my dream dog, I don't want to, in that design of my dream dog, environmental training and conditioning, I don't want to do any of that. Like I want the dog to be
But what
good.
I'm trying to get to is what is better then? Would you like a dog that is not aware at all of its environment because it's such in a high state of arousal? Or would you like a dog that is observant of everything and anything?
If I don't think any of them are good, but I think if I'm picking the lesser of 2 evils, is that better of 2 evils? Whatever. If I'm picking from 2 shitty options, I'm gonna pick the ones that are in a state of arousal because then that gives me more to work with.
But then are you concerned? Then are you concerned in that process that the moment that they get spooked, their arousal state is already so much higher that their recovery will be more difficult?
No, I think that if I have them I don't want to do any of that. So if
okay, but
like
let's just talk about like practicality, like
if
outside the dream.
Yeah, if they get spooked, then we get a new dog.
But you can get spooked. No, I can get spooked.
I've never been spooked.
I could hide and pop out and go boo, and you get spooked.
Hey,
bullshit.
We'll try.
I have. I've scared you.
We'll get on video.
We all know this with puppies. A lot of times,
I stand tall.
Something that can spook them can happen. No big deal. It's about the recovery aspect.
Big deal.
Bullshit. We're not talking about the dream dog at this moment.
That's what the.
No, listen. We're talking about the dream dog for sure. I get what your points are. I'm asking of you. I'm asking if you look at the state of arousal that the dog is already in on its daily state, as a daily mindset. If it gets spooked by something, let's just say someone literally jumps out and goes boo to the dog.
Yeah, boo.
Okay? And most likely that dog that's already in a high state of arousal may start firing up. I mean, depending on the age or whatever.
I think it's the opposite. I think the dogs that are super observant. Who's that over there? Who's that over there?
No, that's
Who's
what
that?
I'm. That's like what I'm getting to. That's what I'm saying. Like, what would be the better evils of the two? Like, what would?
You're drawing conclusions that I'm not willing to draw. I'm saying.
I haven't drawn a conclusion. This is all questions. I was giving examples.
You said the one that's in the higher state of arousal is more likely when someone pops out to start barking at them or be. And I'm saying no. I disagree with that.
Sorry, I should rephrase it then. Go ahead.
Rephrase it.
Do you think that dog, since it's already in a higher state of arousal, will show a higher arousal reaction to something that startles them?
I think if we're speaking in generalizations, no. I think it's way more likely to see the dog, like a dog that is super observant of its environment, to be the one to be more startled and shut down than the dog that is in a higher state of arousal, because a higher state of arousal acts like blinders. Like if you're who's over there, like what comes with that higher state of arousal. Also, I want the dog that walks in and doesn't feel that there is danger.
Okay,
so in the higher state of arousal, what?
You just made me think of something.
So, but when they're in the higher state of arousal, they're not feeling like there's any. Now, it's masking for sure, but they're not feeling that there is danger there. The one that is so observant is feeling that.
No, but you're saying I'm not. I'm talking about observant, but still confident in being observant.
You're making.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that you made a point here is that the higher state of arousal offers blinders. Okay, what is more scary? If you didn't see it coming or you saw it coming?
That's a huge, I can...
Just answer that statement.
I'll answer it.
Okay.
I'll say, so if, Rock from our Edmonton location?
Yeah.
If he's standing in this room...
Okay.
And he sees an alligator coming towards him...
Okay.
He is not going to feel fear because he wrestles alligators.
He does?
If you're standing in this room... and you see an alligator coming towards you, you're going to feel fear because you don't wrestle alligators. It's not so much about if you see it coming or you don't see it coming.
But that doesn't answer
the person is.
Okay, if I see it coming, I have time to assess the situation, understand what to do, whether I can feel confident in the situation, whatever, or if I didn't see it coming and a fucking alligator just popped up to my ear.
Yeah. You seen the Florida guy that just whacked the alligator with the pan?
But you think about that.
Yeah, where'd you come?
If I'm sitting in this chair and I'm jacked up, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden, I'm drinking this Red Bull, right? I'm jacked up, my arousal state's
jacked
high.
Up Mountain Dew.
My arousal state's high, and something just pops out right in front of and I don't, because I didn't see it prior coming. Versus if I'm sitting here and I see the alligator walk through the front door, and I'm like, okay, yep, I got this. I'm the shit.
But that's
let me figure it out.
But you're adding layers to it, because you could see the alligator coming and be like, "Holy shit, there's an alligator coming."
But that's nervy. That's nervy then.
But
I'm not talking about nervy. I'm talking about a confident dog that's observant versus a confident dog that's high arousal state all the time.
But that's what the entire discussion is about: is confidence and nerve. Whether it's a confident dog that's in a high state of arousal or a confident dog that's not in a high state of arousal, it's not about the state of arousal or lack thereof. It's about the confidence.
I still believe in some way, shape, or form that if a dog is in a high arousal state, you're going to get more of a reaction out of the dog if something were to happen, positive or negative.
All right, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Who is a dog that you would refer to as a dog that's very observant in their environment?
Am I allowed to say names?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Pause.
Okay, so I'm allowed to say names. Jasper. But I don't find him super twitchy either.
I don't think that. Okay, maybe.
I think Jasper is very observant. I think Jasper knows who's coming around the corner before it comes around the corner. I think he's that type of dog.
I can see that.
And he's very intense.
Yes, and now these are like hypotheticals that we have to give, right?
Yeah.
And so then name a dog that would be confident but very twitchy and fast-paced, like the on the other side of the spectrum.
Rocco.
Rocco. So Jasper and Rocco. Out of those two, they're both confident dogs.
Yeah.
They're both strong dogs.
Yeah.
You think if something goes boo to Jasper or Rocco, who do you think would be the one that would spook more?
Spook as in like leave, or
Yeah,
spook
spook.
as in react?
Retreat and then maybe make a decision.
I don't think either one of them. I think they had different type of reactions.
I think that we would. I think that it would be Jasper.
Because he wasn't in such a high state of arousal to persevere.
Not because of that, just because I think the confidence is different in those dogs.
So you think
This is not saying that Jasper is not a confident
Do you
dog.
think an even keel, observant, not twitchy dog then is more of a higher risk to being nervy?
Well, yes, because what is confidence and what is being observant, right? Are they different things?
You've never met someone that's confident that is like, oh, like for instance, for yourself, okay? Let's talk about human aspect for a quick second, okay? First off, you're pretty confident. I can say that. Like, you know, you've never had jealousy issues or anything like that. Like, you're overall a very confident person.
Suede.
Okay. I'm sure all of us have insecurities, but I would
Oh, I
say
thought you
that
said-
you are pretty confident from the males
Okay.
that I've interacted with.
Okay.
You still always sit in the right position to make sure that your back is never to the door.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Which allows you to be observant.
Okay.
So you can react if need be,
Observant of what?
a threat
A threat.
or
So
the
when we-
surroundings.
But observant of a threat or a potential threat.
Right.
Right? What is the definition of a dog being defensive? Or feeling defensive?
But you're classifying defensiveness as a so I think
Hold on, no. Just let's get, for the listeners, how would we define defensiveness? That the dog is in the presence of a threat or a potential threat.
Right.
Right? So therefore, being observant is almost a precursor to a defensive tendency. Right? Being like, who is that over there? Oh, everything is okay. Who just walked in the door? Everything is okay.
But I think
Who
an
just-
even keel, now going back to dogs, I think an even keel dog could be observant. And again, this is like kind of a dream, but I think an even keel dog that is observant can still not feel like their back's against the wall 24/7. I still feel like
I'm not
being
saying that.
observant
I'm
of
not
like
saying-
knowing there's a butterfly over there and then there's a person coming
No,
down the driveway.
I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that their back isn't against the wall 24/7, but they're looking for, like, there's
But
a
you think
reason.
looking for a fight is bad?
That's not what I said.
Okay.
I said they're looking for a threat. They're looking, who is around that corner? Who is up next? Who's around that corner? Who just walked in? And as long as all of those things the dog feels comfortable with. Oh, the person that walked in I'm good with. Oh, it is a butterfly. Oh, it is that. All those things are good until it's the boogeyman. And whatever their boogeyman is. There's a reason why they're being that observant. I'm not saying that an observant dog is a nervy dog, but it kind of is a precursor to a dog feeling defensive.
Can I ask you a question? Because it's kind of getting into the psychology of defensiveness and prey and everything like that. I'm not going to say his name, okay? But we had a friend in college, okay? He was more of the quiet type, okay? He was very observant. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. He was very observant everywhere he went, but very confident.
That's depends on who you ask, man. Like that's not how I would define it.
No,
No,
you
I
wouldn't find
think-
him confident?
I think confidence to me in a dog is.
I have to
hold on.
pause you though, because we didn't get to the point of we didn't finish it, because you just disagreed. He was, in my opinion, he was very confident, but if you turned him into the bad guy, like when he turns into 50 Cent, he was scary. He was terrifying.
Yeah, so a lot of defensive dogs behind fences barking look scary and terrifying.
Yeah, but he was forward.
They'll be forward too. But what I'm saying, like confidence to me is what in the dream dog what I want. I do not think that confidence makes for a dog that is going to live a long time and a dog that is going to be a reasonable dog to live with. A confident dog to me is not seeing things as threats. A confident dog to me is the dog that, hey, I have to make sure that I keep you alive as your handler because you'll jump off of the 6th floor of a building because your ball went over there. Like with confidence comes a lack of self-preservation. When a human sits with their back to the wall, hold on 1 second, please. A human sits with their back to the wall and watches the door. Their back to the wall is because of self-preservation. They're watching the door because of self-preservation. When a dog walks into the building, yeah, maybe they feel good about themselves right now, but they're also being very observant of everything that's happening. That's because of self-preservation. Confidence and self-preservation, to me, don't go hand in hand. There's a lack of self-preservation when you have extreme levels of confidence.
So you don't think you could be confident that you could self-persevere through anything? But even within having self-perseverance, it has to have understanding of having, I lost my train of thought.
No,
what did you just say? How did you describe it? Self-preservation? Why can't I say?
Preservation?
Yes. So I think in order to have the understanding of self-preservation, you can still have an ounce of confidence that I can prevail through any threat. Like, I think there's nothing wrong with well, now that I'm thinking about this.
Yeah, I think.
Because I was about to relate it to like a woman in like a dark parking lot at night is looking around their surroundings. And like myself, I feel like I'm a pretty confident asshole.
But
in those moments, I'm probably more vigilant of my surroundings due to the fact that I am a little bit more of prey.
No, you're just feeling vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's vulnerability, feeling vulnerable, feeling defensive is a normal part of existence for humans, for living things. That's how we stay alive.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that if we're designing dream dogs, I would like to remove self-preservation out of my dream dog, right? Like it doesn't make, if you really think about what we're asked, hey, there's a monster of a bad guy hiding in this building that probably wants to do harm to you and harm to me.
Yeah.
And I want you to go run into this building and find him. I don't want the dog to say, well, let me check this building out before I get in here. I want him to be like, bro, I have no fear of what is to come. My self-preservation is at a level 0. I'm having a wonderful time. I'm going to go do this. To me, that is confidence, not the who's up there, who is it?
Yeah, I know. I definitely think you and I think you make great points. I think I make great points. And I think you were definitely onto something when it's like these prey monsters, don't have the self-preservations, that they're kind of more harm to themselves than anything else could ever be. I still, like, I'm on the fence where I sometimes, in my dream dog, I kind of want, like, if the fight's being brought to you, like, I want you to feel an ounce. Like, I think that some of the perfect dogs kind of bounce back between prey and defense, and especially in the apprehension aspect.
I think all of the dogs do, but if we're designing made-up dogs, then I would erase that.
So,
like if it's on a Petri dish, I would want them to be so confident that they have the intensity and nothing feels threatening.
Yeah. So with that being said, we're going to take a quick break, some words from our sponsor, and we'll be back with talking about selecting dogs. All right, we're back. Do you want to recap?
Yeah, so I think one of the things, again, we're in the kennel, you guys are going to hear some dogs barking. It's what we do. But one of the things that we, I think, need to kind of nail the point home is when we're designing this dream dog, they are fictitious dogs. So when I'm saying I just want a dog that has no defensive tendencies or self-preservation at all, that dog doesn't exist, or at least to my knowledge. I haven't met a dog that does not have some level of self-preservation, right?
Yeah.
And then the other point that I think is when we're talking about observant, when a dog is walking in an environment or somewhere.
Yep.
That can be from different places, right? There are some dogs that are observant on who is that up there? Who is that up there? And there are other dogs that are observant in oh, there's something over there I want to go chase.
Yeah.
There's something over there I want to go chase. So mostly what I have been referring to and linking that observantness with self-preservation has been the dogs that are like, who is that? Who's around that next corner? Not the ones that want to go get what that is.
Yeah, that makes sense. So to kind of talk about like selection and like talking about our perfect dog and everything like that, and if we could design it and whatnot, it kind of made me think about our selection process in real life, like not our made up life.
What we're doing to actually try and design.
Yeah, well, exactly. And right now, we've talked about it already. Like we have a litter of puppies. This pairing was quite interesting in where I was a little bit more on the fence because the two dogs are very, very similar, and that may sound like the perfect pairing in the sense that there's a lot of similar traits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there are actually some cons to that, where these two dogs are both very similar in the sense of like they're very intense, they're very twitchy, very high prey.
Very biddable.
Very biddable. Like there's a lot of great qualities to both of the breeds, but like I said, both of the dogs, sorry, they are both very, very similar. And my concern was that they were going to have so much drive is not the right word, but so much arousal state that it could very quickly turn to nerve if a mistake was made, or an environment was exposed to them that they weren't ready for or whatnot, and then you have this really high arousal state dog that's now showing signs of fear, and those two combinations never end up well. So I sometimes like to, if I have a really, really high state of arousal type dog or high drivey dog, sometimes putting it to another dog that's a more even keel with all the great qualities of hunting, biting, environmentals, like all of those other things still exist, but they're not as twitchy, so it can kind of give it a more of a balance. But anyways,
I think that the concern for the nerve with those type of dogs is a realistic concern, because that being in that consistent state of arousal also is like a little neurotic, and like it's like when it works out great,
right?
Like we can use that neurotic behavior to our benefit, but when it doesn't work out,
it gets really bad.
That neurotic behavior goes into things like
doesn't need to be, yeah,
things that we don't.
100%. So I was a little worried in that sense, right? And you never know how large the litter is going to be, the workload, and so forth. So going into it, I am a businesswoman by nature, and I think of the long-term success. And Diva's last litter was 12. And I was a bit concerned in that regards. And luckily, the amount of puppies, for those who don't know this, for a dam to carry obviously has to do with the health of the dam, but also the male is the one that kind of makes the quantity of puppies that exist in the mother's womb.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
You would think it would be based off of the eggs that the mother has available.
Yeah, so it's the viability, if that's the right word I'm using, of the semen, as well as
sailors keep sailing.
Right, so it doesn't mean like and how much do they like? Because if you think about the last two litters that were two large litters, they were same male. Right. So yeah, that plays a huge toll, and also the sex of the litter.
I knew that.
Yeah,
XY.
is determined by the male as well. So it's kind of funny because this litter was all females, and I'm watching this litter grow, and I'm thinking about the selection process, and we're, picking, and they're 6 weeks old, and this is the time. Really from day one, I'm watching them and I'm observing them, and I'm picking out little things that I'm seeing that are consistent, that are strong. Or not strong, and who's more independent, who's regulating, who has the best appetite, who opens their eyes first. I'm looking at everything and anything, and I have a little bit of advantage from doing it so many times that you get to see the dog at the finish line and then going back to the very beginning and trying to pinpoint the similarities of the traits amongst your next litters and going, okay, well, this worked out for this one. Well, it also worked out for this one, and they had the similar traits.
And for particular lines that you're familiar with breeding.
For sure. Right? So, Michael had already shown interest that he would like a female out of this litter. Not only do we need an upcoming breeding bitch, but also his dog's getting a little older, and he's wanting to have a new dog to start training. So I did select his new puppy, and he's very happy with it. And,
you selected it?
Well, it just so happened to be my favorite one out of the litter. Michael, you're going to say my opinion didn't make impact on your decision making?
Allie's opinion made a massive impact because, generally speaking, when it comes to me and picking puppies at 6 weeks old, I'm horrible at it. I'm not very successful at picking one. I'm like, oh, this one's going to be the star, and it ends up being the worst one. So
I think, but the advantage that I have with the litter is that a lot of people don't, and that's why selecting puppies is so difficult. So if you are one of those people that have just purchased the puppy and you're like, man, this is not panning out to how the testing went when I picked up the puppy.
Motion detected at the client parking lot.
Sorry. If you're one of those people that have just selected a puppy and you're going, man, this is not panning out the way I thought it would based on that testing process, or maybe the breeder selected that puppy for you based on the qualifications. What a breeder has to their advantage, and especially a breeder that has done it repetitively, is if they are able to pick up the nuances from day one, they can track the success rate and foresee what's to come. For yourself, being that you help me, but you're not as vigilant, and you're not looking for certain things that I'm consistently looking for.
Not as observant.
You're looking, and so you see them, and one's performing, and I'm like, no, but this one's being more consistent. This is a abnormality of what I'm seeing right now, but this one will show you and continue showing you through and through, right? And I think that's what helps me in regards to selecting puppies. It's the fact that I am so things that people would find don't matter to me.
I think the other thing that helps you with that as well is the amount of data that you actually collect and track.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm big on putting numbers to things that we can put numbers to, and you're way better at setting up systems for that. So just the amount of data that you collect and you have collected from all of these litters helps to guide some of those decisions as well. You know, so it makes it easier for you to notice trends. You know, which I think is pretty cool, and I think people may be interested in a whole podcast about what that data collection looks like.
Well, there's a course coming, so.
Is there?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just taking a long time because there's a lot of litters to pull through.
I think one of the other unique things that you have with these litters is that we don't sell puppies, right? So like most breeders,
well, we have twice, ever.
But we're not selling, we're not breeding them to sell 8-week-old puppies, right? So like most breeders, their data collection ends at 8 weeks old, right? Where we get to continue to see the trends from these litters until they're a year and a half, 2 years old, and noticing, okay, this dog was like this, but being able to correlate that to other dogs that we still have. So I think it's really unique in that.
Yeah, for sure. No, it is, and that's why I think. That's why I'm saying, like, for a lot of people, where you always tell someone when they're asking, I'm going to get a puppy, and you're like, it's a crapshoot. That is a perception for people that are buying puppies out other places. For me, breeding can be a crapshoot, but once you have those puppies on the ground, and of course human error can happen, you know, error, whatever can happen throughout the training process that could change some things, but I feel I'm confident at 6 weeks old, I could pinpoint what dogs are going to make it and what dogs are not. I'm confident of that.
I'm not confident in my decision making at that
But you know what you're really good at?
What?
Is selecting older dogs.
Yeah, because they got it or they don't at that point, you know?
Yeah, so what does your selection process look like when, or should I have talked about my selection process in the puppies?
No, I think you
Okay.
shared
Okay.
like some pretty good info
Okay.
there. I think my selection process when I'm selecting older dogs is obviously pretty different than what we would do with a puppy. And we're saying older dogs, I'm talking about, they're still pretty young. Like they're maybe a year old to 2 years old. The first thing that I want to do is just see what they're like in an environment out of a state of arousal, and just walking them around. So no food, no toys, nothing that is going to be kind of helping them through.
Right, okay.
The other thing that I'll do is I like to put them on a long line when I'm doing this environmental stuff and taking them somewhere where they haven't been, because sometimes just the spatial pressure of, hey, you're on a 6-foot leash and we're heading towards some stairs. Maybe the dog's actually uncomfortable with stairs, but because the handler is right there on top of them, they'll just do it anyway. So I like to give them a good 30-foot line and let them just be way out in front and watch them and observe them kind of in that environment. If most of the dogs that we end up washing in the selection process fail there.
Right.
If they'd happen to look good there and I want them to look like they're in a new place and they've been in that place, it looks like they've been in that place 1,000 times before and they own the spot. I don't want them to be super observant to who's up around the corner. I'm not a big fan of that. The next thing that I do is some hunting. So with a toy, just some prey attraction, maybe field throws. If that goes well, and I'm giving like the Cliff Notes version. If that goes well, I'll move to kind of like a grip check.
Right.
The grip check will be probably on like a chomp sleeve or something. Grip check is good. Then I move back to hunting, but I do kind of inside without the prey attraction. So maybe, hey, here's the ball. Someone posts the dog, goes and hides the ball somewhere, comes back. Then we let the dog go and hunt. And I want to see them hunt with intensity and purpose, not just kind of walking around and stumbling across things or into the toy. If that goes well, I do another just grip check on the sleeve, like immediately. So they do a hunt, that looks good. In the same room, we do a little bite on the sleeve, make sure the grip looks good there, remove them from the sleeve, and immediately go back into another hunt. I want to see that they can still hunt pretty well, even when they may be a little tired. But more importantly, I want to see that they have the ability to transition kind of naturally between one task to the next.
See, that's really unique, and from my experience of watching police testing over the years, because typically it's very similar to the start of as environmental testing first. Okay, if they pass environmentals, then we are going to do a hunt. Okay, and once the hunt is complete, they may do a track, which is whatever. I'm not even giving my opinion on the order of events, but whatever. They'll go from a hunt, and then some agencies will do a tracking test, and then they'll then lead into bite work. So you won't see the back and forth of behaviors. You'll go in an order of events, and if they pass that order, they continue to move forward. But yours is unique because you are looking for where, and it's kind of like a chemical aspect of the brain too. Like, how are they regulating between the different arousals? How are they regulating in the transition?
Yeah, a little bit of that, but also I want the same intensity for hunting as they were just on the bite. And now the bite is a very simple, like kind of sporty bite just on a sleeve, nothing like not intense. And then if all of that goes well, I do like to do an age-appropriate kind of stress test. See how they deal with.
Are you talking like more like a stalking test?
No, not a stalking test. There'll be a bite involved in this, but like if the dog is a year and a half to 2 years, maybe we take the dog into a dark room and we send him on a decoy in there, and I'm going to let the decoy kind of push that dog's limits a little bit and make sure that they're willing to deal with kind of someone that's being a bit combative with them. Again, age appropriate and what the dog is capable of dealing with. During the testing, if I notice and I'm the one working the dog that, hey, I'm seeing signs that this dog isn't going to deal with this stress well. I just kind of stop the testing, let the dog beat me up. We don't need to push the dog to the point of failure to then say, hey, this dog isn't it. I can see the signs of failure coming before they arrive,
Right.
and then decide that this dog
Right.
isn't
Yeah.
it. You know?
Yeah. I definitely don't like when people test dogs and they can't read that, and then you don't. It's like you're breaking it before you buy it, and I don't like that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to be as fair as possible,
Yeah.
but you know, we have to, like, you know, in my perfect world, in that dream dog I designed, they don't see anything as stress or threatening or making them
Yeah.
vulnerable. But in the real world, every dog has those limits, right? So figuring out where those limits are, and if those limits are going to be something that is going to make that dog still capable of doing the job, and if it's not, then
What is your take on stalking tests? I mean, I know I'm asking more or less for the audience.
I think for some people, depending on what the operational use of the dog is going to be, it could be a useful test to them. I don't think that I get as much information personally from the stalking test as other people do, but it's neither here nor there. Like if they like it, I love it, you know, kind of thing. Bless your heart, sweetheart.
Interesting. Okay.
But I think that's a good point. Is like a dog that's very observant, in like the who is that over there,
Yeah.
kind of observant, could perform really well in a stalking test.
Yeah.
Right. And the stalking test, for those of you that don't know what it is basically they tie a dog out, leave them somewhere for a little while, and then someone walks up, usually like with like a ghillie suit or a tarp or something over them, and kind of approaches the dog. And what they're looking for is the dog to kind of light up and be barking at that
just
person.
to show a big display of aggression.
Yeah, but I think sometimes we can, things can be lost in translation, right? Like we don't actually know what maybe that dog that's showing that big display is actually scared shitless.
Yeah.
Or there are some dogs, like I've personally worked dogs that are like silent assassins. Right?
Yeah.
Like maybe they just stand at the end of the line and stare
Well,
at that
Brielle's
person
dog,
walking.
Bam. Like to get that dog to bark
Yeah, but-
is
but-
absolutely. But his nerves are great.
But patrol dogs that
Yeah.
have successful apprehensions with very bad 1%er dudes that are fighting them,
Yeah.
that are just quiet.
Yeah.
Like there are dogs that are like that. I mean, I don't think that the stalking test, at least for me, gives me all of the information that some people are able or capable of taking away from it.
Right. It almost
Now,
send,
for sure, like,
it
if the
can
dog-
almost send mixed signals, so you can start interpreting something one way, and
Yeah,
it's not as clear for yourself.
I think that there are some like really obvious things that can happen on a stalking test. Like if the person
Hides
stalking
behind a tree.
approaches and the dog blows his anal glands
Yeah.
and runs away, well then
Yeah.
he's not dealing
Yeah.
with it well, right? But there's also gray area, and usually I have done the stalking test, but I usually can figure that stuff out when I send them into the room to
Right.
fight with the bad guy.
Right. That makes
in that
sense.
part of the
Yeah.
test. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good. I like all that. You actually went on a selection trip recently to Holland. I think that's a lot in itself to kind of touch on.
I did, and what we can do is we have kind of the full story of that available on our Patreon.
Okay, perfect. So you went to Holland. You
Went
tested
to Holland.
tested
Basically,
some
the
dogs.
Cliff's Note version of that is I went to Holland to go. So I was looking for about 5 or 6 dogs.
Yeah.
Tested a good amount of dogs. I don't blame the vendor for this. Found probably 3 of them that I was 3 to 5.
Yeah, 5
that I was like, okay, I was into. And I had a really quick turnaround time. I was there for like 4 days
Yeah.
in total. And so I was flying out the next day. We sent over the medical x-rays to our vet, and every single dog had hip dysplasia, elbow dysplasia,
Yeah.
or both. So I flew out there. It was a really expensive vacation to not have a good time and come back with no dogs. But that's the nature of the beast sometimes. That's what we do. I don't blame the vendor. They have so many dogs that they go through over there. And I kind of blame myself. I should have planned a little bit better. And I'm confident that if I had a longer time
little
to
bit more
stay
time,
there,
yeah.
I would have still got the dogs.
That's what happens when you're a busy man, sweetheart.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do?
So let's get into our final segment of
What's our final segment?
Q&A.
Do we have questions?
We do. Your questions are on your paper, but I'll start asking you first. Okay?
All right.
Oh my goodness. What was one moment you wanted to strangle Allison while working a dog?
I've never wanted to strangle Allison, so we'll say that. But
He doesn't want the evidence.
there have been a few times. There was a year.
A few?
There was a year.
You exaggerate on time.
There was a year straight that me and Allison, to save our marriage, made the pact to never work dogs with each other because they were leading to domestics. They'll be like, I was working up some green dogs and some pretty sketchy dogs at some points. And
I saved your life.
you did save my life one time. But I would be like, hey, Allie, hold the dog, like post the dog. And she's, say it nicely. Why are you saying it like that? And I'm like, bro, in the moment of working dogs, when I'm about to get bit in the face, I don't have time for the, but we overcame that.
Yeah, because early on in Michael's career, he was still practicing how to decoy and also articulate well, which is normal for all decoys and even trainers,
It was
right?
me. Allie was practicing on handling a dog. Posting a dog is so hard. A tree could do it.
No, it wouldn't be just posting the dog. It would be like, come in. Pull out, like you would just like you'd be like completely.
Are you flirting with me?
No, shut up. You would literally, he would just scream every time he doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah. It's just years of practice. All right.
Okay.
Can I ask you one?
No, next question for you.
I'll ask you, and then you can go back to me because I don't know how much more battery life I have.
Okay.
Over the years, you've worked with a lot of apprentices. Was there one apprentice that stood out to you, and why?
Yes.
What? Let's hear it.
That was easy.
You were my favorite apprentice.
First off, I should preface
So preface that.
There's a lot of apprentices that I love, and there's a lot of apprentices that I really don't like. So if you're one of those that I love, just because I'm mentioning this person doesn't mean I don't love you as well. But this person came to mind. Her name is Kesha.
Ooh.
And she just embodied this free-spirited, I want to learn everything and anything, and I am here for your knowledge, your friendship, and your time. And she came all the way from Australia. She's originally from England.
Good day, mate.
And I remember our interview, and I was just like, I can't believe this girl is about to jump on a plane and come live on the farm for 4 or 5 months. And it was like we had known each other for our entire life. Every morning felt like it was Downton Abbey, you know, having some coffee or tea for her, coffee for me. And just listening to her talk, it was like everything just turned into a movie for that brief moment. And then we went back to reality. And when she left, I was super devastated. And I still stay in contact with her. And she's killing it over there. I'm still waiting for Grassroots Canine Australia, Kesha. So when you're ready, let me know. But yeah, she definitely, I think anyone that's worked with her would say, yeah, like I completely agree with that statement.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome.
Yeah. All right, my question for you. If you could do this dog training journey over, what's one thing you would change?
I like kind of a shitty answer, but I don't think that I would change anything. I think that we can get a little spiritual, but like things happen by design, and things are as they should be. I don't think that there's anything that I would change.
Okay. Okay.
Pretty crappy answer, but if you could repeat any breeding that you've done, which would it be, and why is it Diva and Rocco?
It's definitely not Diva and Rocco yet, but I would. It's not necessarily a repeat of breeding; it's a repeat of a dam, and that would be Dakota.
I thought you were gonna say Hammy and.
Oh my gosh. Dakota was my heart dog. She is everything to me, and I miss her every single day. And if I could just have more offsprings from her, that would, hands down, be, it's an easy answer. Just repeat any breeding off of her over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Until I got a clone.
Yeah. Or just clone her.
Or just clone her. Well, guys, so that concludes our podcast. Thank you for joining The Rooted. We appreciate you. We look forward to your comments or questions. And stay tuned for our next episode when we're in Cali.
or Mexico.
California.
I might film one in Mexico.
Knows how
Remember,
to party.
you guys can also, for our Q&A portion, submit questions, and we'll pick
I said
some
that in
and
the
decide to
comments.
answer it.
I said that first. That's a wrap, folks.
Wrap it up like a condom.
Or not.
Cheers.